Hi guys, Aaron from Diet Science Revolution. Today I want to talk about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's the dangers that could be lurking in your prenatal vitamins. In the 1940s, scientists discovered that folate actually reduced the prevalence of neural tube defects in fetuses. So in 1998, the United States government mandated that foods would be fortified with folate, and that usually is bread and things like that, wheat products, cornmeal, stuff like that. But the problem is they're using folic acid. So what's the difference between folate and folic acid? Well, of course, folate is natural, and folic acid is actually a synthesized, oxidized, synthetic version of folate.
Okay, so I came across a couple articles that talked about folate and folic acid and, the dangers of folic acid. And we've been eating it for a couple decades now in our food. So, I saw some articles about autism and how it's possibly linked to autism and all that. So I really wanted to dig in and do some research and figure out if this is not only true, but what's the difference between the two, how the body processes them and all this stuff. So this is what I came up with, okay? So folate is B9. It's a water-soluble vitamin, right? Well, it enters the body as THF, which is tetrahydrofolate, and it's easily metabolized and processed through the body. Now, since folic acid is an oxidized synthetic compound, right, it has to go through a certain methylation in the liver. It converts to THF, but it's required that you have dihydrofolate reductase, which is an enzyme in your body. But if you have low levels of that, especially if you have liver issues or anything like that, but most people will have low levels of that, right? So folic acid, needs that enzyme. And if you don't have enough of that enzyme and you're eating this folic acid all the time, because it's in your foods, it's in your prenatal vitamins and stuff like that, you're going to get this influx of folic acid that's constantly running through your body, right? Okay, so I was looking into some studies, and they found that high intake of folic acid actually increased your cancer risk in a lot of ways. Now in Norway, they did they don't do food fortification there. They don't add folic acid to food. So patients with ischemic heart disease were treated with folic acid and B12, and then they found that their cancer risk skyrocketed and their mortality rates went up, right? So in the U.S., since they started fortifying with folic acid, cancer rates have skyrocketed off the charts, right? So a random control trial found that supplementing 1 milligram of folic acid increased prostate cancer in men. So also in the U.S., since they started fortifying with folic acid, there's a correlation between a steady rise in colon cancer as well in both sexes, right? So why? How does folic acid relate to cancer? What's the mechanism? They hypothesized that it stimulates the growth of established neoplasms in the body, okay? And that'll lead to cancer. So we have cancer in your body all the time. We have mutating cells and cancerous cells growing in our body all the time, but they don't get out of control. And if you have a strong immune system, the immune system will come and sweep up those cancerous cells, and it never becomes an issue. But when you're in a weakened state and you have a weakened immune system, that cancer is going to get out of control, and that's when tumors grow, right? So they think that unmetabolized folic acid is associated with a decrease in your natural killer cells, okay? And they play a role in tumor cell destruction. So that may, the excess folic acid going around the body may actually accelerate malignant lesions, okay? So then we get to the associated risks of autism. So how does that work? At first I was really skeptical about that. I kind of went, yeah, they're just coming up with, throwing darts at a board and trying to, explain why the autism rates keep increasing. So this is kind of a connection I made in my own head. I could be wrong on this, and I'll admit that I could be wrong, but this is what I think. So there's a really solid form of folate that you can take, and it's called 5-MTHF. And that stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate, okay? MTHF. So there's a gene in your body known as MTHFR 677T. And what that is it's your ability to mitigate toxins, okay? It's the gene that takes care of toxins, environmental toxins like heavy metals, poisons, things like that. It mitigates those out of your body, right? So, what does MTHFR mean? MTHFR stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. Okay, so you see the connection there? MTHF, MTHFR, right? So they're related. It's a folate related gene, right? So imagine, if you will, because it's already been proven that autistic people have a fault in that gene. I have a son with autism. We've run genetic tests on him, and we found a double fault in his MTHFR 677T, and he had large amounts of aluminum in his brain. Okay? So, when you have folic acid running through the fetus and all that stuff, it's likely that it damages that gene, correct? It's not that you have bad genes and you're passing bad genes onto your family. This could be directly related to folic acid. Now, like I said, I could be wrong, but it only makes sense because when you have a mitigating toxin gene that's MTHFR and MTHF is folate, put it together. Okay, right? So, another risk of folic acid is it mass B12 deficiencies, and it leads to the deterioration of the central nervous system. So, one study was they had a consumption of 400 milligrams or micrograms a day, and that resulted in significant decline of cognitive function in older folks, right? So another study found that old adults with a vitamin B deficiency and vastly higher rates of anemia and cognitive decline were from folic acid as well, right? So folate itself actually lowers homocysteine in the blood, right? So if you have some of these genetic faults, sometimes you can have that problem, right? So women planning on becoming pregnant should take 800 to 1200 micrograms per day, right? So the folate containing foods that you actually want to eat are romaine lettuce, asparagus, turnip greens, mustard greens, parsley, collard greens, broccoli, cauliflower, beets, lentils, and then the highest form of folate that you can get is from calf or chicken liver. Ugh. So who wants to eat that? So if you're not eating all these things every day, whether you're pregnant or not, you should be taking folate. Now, I would avoid, and if you've watched my video, Foods That Harm, stay away from wheat products. There's a lot of issues with wheat products, with the Roundup being sprayed on it, and a lot of people's reduced ability to break up wheat gluten strains, right? Because of, the way that that's been crossbred and genetically engineered throughout the years. Those glutens are really thick, and it's very difficult and sometimes impossible for some people to metabolize that into small amino acids for the gut to pick up. So you get these long strings that are like, a string of pearls, and it's like being sucked up in a vacuum cleaner, okay? Problems are going to happen. It's leading to irritable bowel syndrome, leaky gut, and things like that. So my whole point of this is that I was very concerned about prenatal vitamins, and most prenatal vitamins that you find in a grocery store, on the market, or even some that are prescribed by a doctor, contain folic acid. So what you really need to do is find yourself a supplement that contains good forms. Now you want forms like L5, MTHF, and things like that, natural raw folate. So I've done the research for you, and on my website you go to the top and they'll have a link at the top that says more, and that'll lead you click on that'll lead you to my store, the Revolutionary Store. I did the research. I found the best prenatal vitamins that you can find. It's called Vitamin Code Raw Prenatal Vitamins, and it's loaded with some of the best stuff. It has raw folate, calcium, the B vitamins you need, and a whole list of other vitamins. And it's all organic. and it's loaded with tons of like phyto nutrients and stuff like that. A lot of organic stuff in there. So I highly, highly recommend that you get that if you're pregnant or if you're thinking about becoming pregnant. You want to be taking a good solid folate like 3 months before you become pregnant. So you have to really be aware. Look at your labels. It's very important to look at your labels. So if you have folate or folic acid that in your prenatal vitamins, get rid of it. It's very important. I could be wrong, and science could be wrong about the risk with autism and all that, but the cancer rates are real. Folic acid is not good. Synthetic vitamins and minerals are not good. We need to stick with the natural stuff. So if you have any questions or anything like that, please contact me on my webpage. Down at the bottom of the front page, dietsciencerevolution.com, there'll be a contact me place, and you can put in your information there. It'll send me an email and I can answer any questions for you, or you can contact me on my Facebook page. Take care, everyone.